that you've been feeling mighty stressed out. Feel a little weight up in your chest now. Maybe it's just time to take a breath now. Got too many things up in your head now. Now baby, you got the power. I know you're sitting here and feeling mighty sour, but baby, you ain't gotta stay that way for hours. We could tap into the worldwide vibe tribe. Do yourself a favor and change your vibe. Change your vibe, get it together and feel alive. Change your vibe, change your vibe, get it together and feel alive. Okay, you feeling really sad, whoop, no you're not. You feeling really angry, baby, no you're not. You feeling real upset, hey, no you're not. Get it together and feel alive.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of QTube. I have with me over here, Mr. Jay Long. How are you doing?
Ooh, I am pretty good. All things considering, staying well, staying safe, making art.
For those of you who don't know you, you're a singer-songwriter. Where are you right now?
Right now, I'm in Los Angeles.
You're in Los Angeles right now. We always think anybody who's in the California or the Pacific Coast area that everybody is clustered, I don't know, all in the same tenement maybe, in Los Angeles. But I'm coming to find that a lot of people have kind of like left the city center per se, and maybe they've gone to like a little smaller areas just because it's probably a little less COVID crazy.
Yeah. I live in East Hollywood, so it's and it's pretty congested, but it's like it's all right, and everyone I know is staying pretty safe. But yeah.
For those who are not necessarily familiar with you, singer-songwriter, but what's your background in? I mean, how did you get to this point? Because a lot of what you do isn't typical, what I would call typical pop. It's kind of takes in a number of different elements. Sometimes it is a little, you get into cabaret a bit, and sometimes you get in maybe into some show tune styles that still have a pop element. But how did you get here?
Yeah, so my introduction to music is as a violinist. So when I was a kid, like 4 years old, I saw a video of an orchestra. I came home and said, Ma, Pa, I want to play the violin. They said, great, you'll do it for a month and you'll be done. Fast forward in 29, I am now. So -4, whatever that is. I'm a musician, I'm a mathematician. But I teach professionally, I teach strings. So my day-to-day life is involved in music. My creative life is that. And it's interesting you bring up like the Broadway kind of influence, because I do get that a lot. And in discovering that I could sing, because I didn't know as a kid, I just knew I liked music and I could do violin pretty good. But in discovering I could sing, it was through vocal jazz. So vocal jazz brought me into musical theater. And then I discovered kind of this like huge emotive power that singing and lyricism and storytelling music has, but also grew up in, outside of Chicago and had this like deep love for 90s hip hop and pop subsequently. So it's kind of this like huge amalgamous creature of all of the different influences that I've had. So lots of my melodies come from my influence in musical theater and lyricism there. Lots of my instrumentation comes from my hip hop and pop. And then of course, also my experience with classical, Beethoven and Mozart and all those melodies on the violin. So lots of different influences kind of just like wrapped up in one.
I was going to say, it is quite a fusion sometimes when I listen to your music. And I think that, and what I appreciate about it is that fusion sound, because I think sometimes the trope in pop music is to whatever is being kind of force fed out there on the radio or whatever, the gatekeepers are saying is importantly popular. People tend to kind of gravitate towards that when really it's about an expression of yourself and wherever it kind of comes from. So when you bring in all those extra elements, suddenly it's like that fusion creates something new, and it's typically usually really exciting. And I would say the new song that's coming is a really good example of that.
Yeah, thanks. I'm very, very excited about this one because it does feel like that. And it's interesting you say that because I often feel pressure as a songwriter and a performer, to give the people what they want, period, right? Because it's like, at the end of the day, I do have to consider numbers and I do have to consider what it looks like to market and sell a thing. And with this one, this is the first time that like an audience asked for it before I made it, you know, because it came from this little TikTok video that I did, and people were like, "Where's the song? Where's the song?" Not knowing that I was a producer, songwriter, and musician. So it was this like really weird universe, like affirmation. So it's like, this one feels very special to me.
Well, I mean, and it's great when you have that kind of reinforcement from an audience that lets you know that we're into this, we dig this. Because I can only imagine as a songwriter the pressure that is out there, because you know the comparisons and all that kind of stuff. But so the song is called "Change Your Vibe," and it's first of all super positive. It is. And it is eclectic in its own kind of way, but it's more so in kind of like a hook. I've got you, and I'm going to reel you in kind of way. It's really hard not to listen to and not to actually become excited and energized by it. So to already have people saying, you know, where is it? Where is it? Where's the song? You know that you've hit upon something. So tell us about the song itself. It's Change Your Vibe, but you know, what was the gestation of it and where did it kind of come out of, other than TikTok?
Yeah, so I am a person who deals with, you know, like mental illness. Like I deal with depression and anxiety. At one point in my life, I was diagnosed bipolar, I have ADD, all of those things. So in doing lots of mindfulness work, right? Trying to listen to myself, to my thoughts, what I'm doing, how do I negotiate with myself and change my own vibe? And I was just having a horrible day. I was having a terrible day. I was driving home from work and I was just angry. And I just caught myself being angered and frustrated, and like turned to this training that I'd done through therapy, which like cannot advocate enough. Like, have therapy in your life. It's a beautiful thing. And one of those things is like, your mind has the power to change your outlook entirely if you just tell it to. And if you sit here in these moments when you're frustrated and angry and pissed off, and you continue to feed that, that's where you're going to be. But if you listen to it and you pause and you say, nope, change your vibe. Maybe I'm happy. I'm going to be happy. That's what I want to be. I'm going to commit to that right now. These other things that have angered me, they don't matter. What matters is my well-being and, you know, my sanity, my happiness. And so I literally can, like, in my car, just like sat and just like sang a song to myself, and then was tickled to death because it was not bad. And I was like giggling and laughing, and I was like, oh my God, I got to record this. This is so silly. And I posted it thinking, like everyone does, you know, no one will care. People will like look at it and giggle. And it just took off. And people were like, how is this working? Like, how did this actually change my vibe? Like, I don't get it. And I was like, oh yeah, music is powerful. And it's like group therapy together. You listen to a beautiful piece of music and it makes you cry, and then you turn to the audience members next to you and they're crying as well, or vice versa, you know? So it kind of came from that, and now it lives there.
I think that's great. And I think that you hit upon a few things that I fully believe in, and I you know, resign myself to. And I think therapy is very important. I think that you know, we always should deal with our mental health the same way that we do with our physical, our emotional, our oral, our vision. It's part of us, and it's not meant to be denied. You know, a dentist will tell you, if you go regularly to the dentist, you probably will avoid those cavities and the pain. And it's a little bit like thinking like that. And the other piece that you said, which is, I mean, obviously I subscribe to, is that music is really powerful. And sometimes, you know, I mean, it's a lot of work to get yourself to a place where you can fight with yourself and change that around. And people, you know, the work needs to be put in, but it can be put in a way that can get you there in maybe a less bumpy of a ride sometimes. And I really think music is part of that, where, you know, it can transport you. And when you bring along a song like you have that is so upbeat, and I mean, we're not talking like it's not like you're out on the dance floor spinning. It is an inner energizing momentum within this song, and it's got a joyfulness to it, that isn't necessarily, it's not like put upon, and, you know, it really comes from a place of honesty. So lightning in a bottle for you, I think. You know,
Thank you. That's really exciting, you know, to hear, and because I've shown it just to my friends and my close circle of people, and of course they all gas me up because we love each other and we support each other. But it's always really nice to hear that from, you know, we don't interact on a day-to-day basis, so it's really nice to hear, you know, some opinions on it from there.
I think that you know, and again, you know, one of the things that may probably help you out in this bit is being someone who does teach others. What, you know, I come from the post-secondary institution, you know, colleges and universities, and when you are working submerged in an area, you know, in a life where people are learning, you don't necessarily realize how much you're impacted by it, by their stresses, by their, you know, movement through life. We hear things, we take things on, it's around us all the time. And we're teaching them, but also trying to teach ourselves. So I think that, you know, we learn without trying to learn sometimes, and it can be confusing, but I think it does help when you're in some of those environments sometimes to kind of draw from.
Yes, and it's funny, you're touching on something that I'm very, very passionate about. And I kind of call my own music, because I don't prescribe to one certain genre. It's such a mix of things. I kind of call it just mindful music. Mm-hmm. And what I want to do as an artist is make things that aren't influencing people. That word is like such a trigger for me now, you know, because everything is an influence, but things that aren't indirectly influencing people in a negative way, right? Like, we listen to a lot of popular music that talks about the wealth, the money, the fame, the success, the just being fabulous and wonderful. And that's great. Those are great things to aspire to be. But when it is extraordinarily difficult for you to get to those places, sometimes it's depressing to watch and consume all of this luxury, you know? And so something I want to touch upon as an artist is like preaching radical self-love. And part of that is talking about that fabulosity, about the luxury, but also about like the really painful nitty-gritty things of being a human, period. Dealing with, you know, addiction and depression and image, body image, you know, all of these different things, but wrapped up in music that is palatable and that is enjoyable to listen to. So, yeah.
Talking about self-love, and when sometimes people get confused by it and they think it's a bit hokey or something, but really what it is about giving yourself space, giving yourself room to breathe, giving yourself the ability and patience with yourself, and giving yourself permission to not always be 100%. And it's, you know, you're not meant to be. But when you talk about those things, like, and I mean, Instagram is a really great example of where you want to talk about body image and self-care and how it can be so impactful. You know, I mean, we are, and I'm not, I mean, you would think at my age that I'd be someone who's kind of like, oh, I don't even think about that stuff anymore. But body image stays with you all the time. It doesn't matter how old you get, because after you get past the point of being okay with maybe your size or not being as tall or maybe not having a jawline or whatnot, by that point in time, you're getting into age, and then you're looking at, it's like, now I'm starting to get the lines. Now I'm starting to get this, and I'm no longer young, and it's like, it's a vicious circle. And then when you take the fact that we listen to so much music, and sometimes that music really is, it's wrapped in a really nice, pretty, you know, jazzy, exciting package, but it really is about the stuff that we can't easily obtain or maybe never obtain. And it can be really daunting to think, how am I going to get there, when you think about the fraction, the 0.001% who actually do get to that place. For the rest, it's a big hill to climb, and really you're probably never going to reach the top of that, and that's okay. But it's about giving yourself that room to know that it's okay.
Right. And I love that phrase as a tool, like, it's okay. Like, can't be bothered. It is what it is. And you just celebrate. You know, some of the stuff that I have coming out after this, I've been working on stuff for a long time. And right before COVID hit, was doing a lot of live shows, and I think actually how we connected was through this kind of production thing that I started with some friends called Queer Moment.
Yeah.
And we were looking to kind of, kind of bring some of these people who are different and queer and interesting and eclectic together in many different facets and celebrate that. And so I had a whole live set that was about taking us through the steps of how do you love yourself, and kind of like 7 or 8 different songs that start with like, my past, which is my dad's a pastor, grew up very religious, and he loves me, loves his queer son, who is an artist out in LA. And kind of going from there into how do I now dress up very feminine on stage and dance and prance around for a bunch of strangers and feel okay and confident with it. And it is kind of, it's that story of it's just okay. You just do it, because what's the other option? To sit at home.
Well, I mean, and also I think too, it's an expression of you, right? And I think that whenever you try to stifle expression, it comes out in other ways, and a lot of the times it's not positive because it's been restricted. And I love the fact that you use the expression mindfulness music, and sometimes people don't understand what mindfulness is when you think about yourself and you become critical about your own well-being and how you really want to feel and what it's going to take to kind of get there, and being okay with some of the things you have to leave behind and some of the things that it's okay to pick up because you never ever gave yourself permission to pick them up before.
Look at us, therapy. Come on now. Okay. Are you billing me or am I billing you?
Oh, I don't know. we'll call it even and we'll get some drinks sometime.
Blessing. That sounds
with the music. So the song's coming out officially on December 12th. Yes. And so people are either seeing this, they could be seeing this before the fact or seeing this after the fact, or seeing it on the day. But it's going to be out. It's going to be out everywhere. Are you doing a video with it?
I'm not currently doing a video, and no. I've been tinkering with some other things. And it's partly because I'm working on a separate video. That's like a really big undertaking with a couple of friends of mine for a song that's going to be coming out in the new year called Pull Looks. It's kind of like on the same vein about like, wear whatever you want if it makes you feel good. It's not for other people to look at you, it's for yourself to feel good. So that one has like a ton of different outfits involved, and that's kind of taking like all of my creative emotion right now. But I'm tinkering around possibly having this one be like a crowdsourced kind of video, because that's where it came from. People saying, hey, you should do this, you should do this. I would love to hear it again. How do I make this an alarm? So so for the people who are seeing this before it comes out, right now I'm doing push-ups for pre-saves, which means any one person who pre-saves the song via the link in my Instagram bio or TikTok, whatever, I'm doing 5 push-ups per person. And
you're gonna be in shape.
I'm working on a little bit of, yes, because I hate working out. I find it I'm not one of those people who's like, love the burn. I detest it, but I do love my music career. So I thought if I could find a way to force myself to do some fitness with that, it would be a great trade-off. And people have been really kind and receptive of that. And I'm putting together a little giveaway and making some merch for the song. And at the end of all this, when the song is released, whoever can guess exactly how many push-ups I've done throughout the time is going to get a special piece of merch. So hopefully,
so if people are watching this, they should be counting, is what you're saying.
Yeah. There's places you can count. It's going to be, mostly guesstimates, and I actually haven't set up exactly how I'm going to monitor people submitting, but that'll be released in the week before.
I think that's really smart. I think that's really smart marketing. When you think about things like we've done, for other causes, it doesn't always, and I guess this is something that we're getting to now, especially I think artists are really feeling it, that the cause doesn't necessarily always have to be about a disease or death. It could be just about the viability and the livelihood of people who are creating for you. Just like you're talking about, right? Like kind of getting out there and pre-saving. Pre-saving costs you nothing.
Yes.
Like, it costs you nothing. And what it does for the artist is that it gives them a pool to draw from, and it keeps them going. Like, I mean, the more pre-saves, it seems like, you are moving things along, and it helps you out with algorithms and all that crazy behind the, scenes hoo-ha. It's kind of like when, and I said to some friends at one point in time, I was just like, for Christmas, what you can do, and it costs you nothing, is that if you share and comment on things that I'm trying to push out there, that helps me by reaching a larger audience. It's the same thing with artists. Whenever I see, a pre-save, I'm like, yeah, well, I want to know what they're going to be doing anyway. I'm going to go track it down at some point in time. If I pre-save them, they're going to notify me anyway. It makes it a lot easier. So if people ever want me to pre-save, I will pre-save the heck out of things, but it costs me nothing, and it helps the artist out so much.
Yeah. And I see a lot of, like, on TikTok and social media, it's like the era of the small business, people who are making things with their hands and selling them on Etsy or their own stores and stuff. And one like trend that I'm seeing is people showing the difference between the celebration of getting a sale from a small business versus Amazon, right? Like, Amazon is billions of sales. They don't even know. There's not one person who's sitting there and packaging and saying, this is going to, Johnny in Atlanta, and I can't wait until you get it, Johnny. Here's your handwritten note. It's the same for a small artist. Like, I know every single person who pre-saved the song. I'm like talking with people I have never met before on Instagram and TikTok, because they're like, hey, I saw this. Good luck. I can't wait to see what you do in the future. And I'm like, thank you. And I look through their profiles, I see who they are, and I'm like, wow, how interesting. And you don't choose your audience as an artist. You don't really choose. You don't say, okay, I would like to appeal to these people, and I'm going to do that. But when you start to see people coming in and you're like, oh, they have a similar vibe, they have a similar sensibility, it really makes you feel, dare I say, successful. It makes you feel like, you've found your people.
I think it's the connection. You realize you are connecting with people, because if you didn't know them and they took the chance to pre-save because they heard something that they liked, that you're moving in a direction. It's almost like a small piece of validation, I think, that lets you know, without having to beg for it, that somebody has taken an interest. They've connected for some way, shape, and form, and that helps keep you going sometimes. Just talking to artists about how much struggle it is to keep the momentum and keep the fire going in your gut. You can be as passionate as you want to, but when it's like you're releasing into a void sometimes. It's really, really difficult. And I say that to people all the time. It's kind of like, artists aren't out there browbeating people. They're trying, literally in front of them is, I need to be a PR person, I need to be the writer, I need to be the person who's going to create the graphics, I need to be the person who's going to manage all this stuff and manage any kind of money that's coming in. I got to figure out the technology of Spotify. I need to figure out what the hell's going on Facebook, because it continuously keeps changing, and every time I think I've got it down, it's moved on. You have to be a one-man band, one-woman band, no pun intended.
Right.
And people don't realize that, because most people go to work and it's like, my job when I go to work is to take care of this sector of things. And that's my job. And if somebody needs help with anything and I can provide it, well, I'll help them or whatnot. But my role is right here. And if you're an independent artist, you are the entire building.
Yeah.
Everything,
and not to mention
the doors to cleaning the bathroom, to stocking the shelves, to firing out the mail.
All of it. And I'm speaking predominantly for myself, but I know a lot of other independent artists live this way too. And we have full-time jobs. It's not like every day I have time to sit and do this. It's after my 8 to 6, then after that, I have to set up the photo shoots and edit the photos and get the music to the right people and produce it myself and write it and all of this. So it's like, it's multiple jobs, and to have anybody come through and say, hey, wow, I see you, keep going, that's motivation enough,
So if you're out there and you're watching this and you're a music fan, pay attention. Make sure that you pre-save those songs. Make sure that you do. If you are a fan, don't just like the post. If you're on Instagram, make a comment. For the love of God, make a comment, because that helps. If you're on Facebook, share it and make a comment. Do these things. It costs you nothing, and it's not going to disturb your feed. It's all good. It's all good, but it helps the artist out so much. Those are the little things that a lot of fans can do, that they don't really necessarily take into consideration sometimes. So what's the goal for 2021? Because you've got this coming out at the end of 2020. You're going into 2021, changing your vibe, being high on a happy vibe, and are we going to see more from Queer Moments? What is coming music wise? Obviously there's a video that you're working on, so yeah, what's the goals for 2021?
Well, big goals, always big goals, but I've been working on an EP for a long while. And it's just because these songs, some of them have been finished for a year. Some of them I've been writing for 3 years. Some of them happened in a couple months, but I wanted to do something really strong for the queer community, because this is the community that has supported me and protected me and made me love who I am, and I want to give back. So I've been working on this EP, and I've entitled it Gaycom, Gaycom. And it's about, gay community, gay commentary, gay commitment. And it centers around a lot of hefty ideals of things that I, as a member of the community, find we aren't having public discourse about enough.
Right.
Things that I think any human would like to see more public discourse about, healthy relationships amongst, friends, lovers, enemies, all of these things, relationships with addiction, even relationships with body image and self-image. And so long story short, I'm trying to finish this EP, and having this music video for it is one of the tracks from the EP. And once that is finished and put together, then I think the rest will slowly come out. And it's coming with a very small publication also. So like a written, I just call it queer propaganda, because I like the word propaganda. I feel like it's a very fiery word and alerts people. So, but it's very
a series. Very rad.
Yes. And I love radical anything, like as long as it's rooted in love for me, Ken, as long as like that is the core of it, is love and respect, then I think it can only bring positivity. So this comes with a whole slew of questions that I have been toying with for myself, and questions that I would like other people's answers to, because we can answer things. This is what we do as humans. We fill in the blanks, but I want to see how other people are filling in the blanks. So the next project, and what I'm hoping to finish in 2021, is this EP. And of course, along the way, there will be some singles that I'm putting out, because as a creative and a songwriter, you don't stop. There's always 10 to 12 projects happening simultaneously, but this is the big one. I've been teasing it for about a year and some change, very, very subtly. So I'm, here it is. You heard it first. 2021. Let's hope for the EP.
I believe in you. I believe it's gonna happen. I think that, after 2020, I think that for so many of us who have been sat and we've been online so much, and we've been talking, and I've been having a lot of conversations, I think that we've used this year to learn, and to kind of plan, and to kind of like think bigger, and think about more positive constructs that we can kind of bring into the world, and hopefully positively affect right around us, and that it spreads out. And I think that that's going to happen. I think there's a lot that's going to happen for queer independent artists in 2021, because of 2020. I think that there's been some fires lit, and I'm excited by that.
Oh, and you also did ask about Queer Moment, and this is something that kind of taken a pause, just because it was rooted in supporting safe queer spaces, and bringing, and not just queer artists, but queer business owners and performers of all sorts together in one place to try and raise awareness of what they're doing, and raise money for those people and for the queer spaces. So it did kind of take a pause as a lot of those spaces are closed.
Right.
And we did the live stream for a minute, but it just was a little difficult for me and my business partner. So we are planning some things moving forward. And as live performances are becoming more of an option in safe social distance environments, we're looking into some of those things and trying to bring some of those artists back together. So that is also back in the works for 2021.
That's awesome. And I think that, you know, I think you're in LA, and, you know, in WeHo, and I think that you're in a space where, you can utilize some of that stuff as things tend to open up a little bit more. It can still be online, because what we've learned about the online piece is that people are out there willing to watch. They're willing to have those experiences. It may not look like, you know, an Ariana or a Kylie concert. It may look very different than that, but they're out there because they do want to engage. And I think that's the beauty of what we've come into contact with and what we've learned from it.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm interested. I have a question for you, because I know you've got some things coming up as well. Is there, can you tease to us, to the audience of Q Review, what you've got coming on? Because
what I'll say is my goal is community. My goal is I'm using my experience in education and in business management and in advocacy and activism to kind of take a different approach to things. That's going to look, it could look a little wonky for some folks. I think that for anybody who kind of can sit with it and kind of go, this is kind of neat. This is very, very different. I've been involved in the music industry, and I've seen I've seen a lot of ugly, and I've seen a lot of the tunnels, just the streams that we're stuck in that people can't get their heads out of. So I'm really approaching that very differently. I'm thinking of the students that I used to work with, that I spent 25 years working with, and how I used to talk to them about, you know, not getting so pigeonholed into certain ways of thinking, but to broaden that out. So I'm applying that to what Q Review currently is doing, to hopefully open up some new channels and some new things and new approaches that will afford artists the ability to do some different things and empower them and put the power in their hands, rather than being at the whim of somebody who can control whether or not they're heard.
Yes.
So critical.
Yeah. I mean, it's whenever you're speaking about, you know, like a passion or a creative process, I feel like it always comes out that way. It always feels that way, where you're like elusive and like big and like dreaming. But I know that for you, because it's the same for me, like there is a clear cut like rival of what that's going to be and how that looks. And I'm excited to see it, and hopefully, you know, be a part of it.
I'm excited for people to, I think what I'm more excited for, I think I'm more excited to introduce it to people and then have conversation about it, because I think that what we do, and I'm thinking from the, it's weird, I hate the word business, but it's the thing that people understand, right? So I'm thinking about from the organizational structure of things and what the future could look like. I'm excited to talk to people about opening their minds and opening how they maybe manage their expectation of success and what their expectation of longevity in a career looks like, and how they, as a tight community and as an embracing community and a loving community, can help one another. I sound so like not wishy-washy, but I sound, you know, very, very much the outpouring of love and affection, that kind of thing, which it is meant to be, but it's done in a way of it's being approached in a way of knowing that there are a lot of folks out there who still look at artists, who still look at the queer community as a means to an end, as a vehicle for success for not for the queer community, but for other aspects. And I'm saying, no, I'm saying, let's take that control back a bit and say, how do we become a vehicle for ourselves, for our own success and our own protection and our own safety? There's too many people out there who will say, yeah, let's do that. We want to make sure that we're taking care of the queer community. And it'll be done by people who do not understand anything about what anybody who's from the queer community has gone through.
Yeah.
And not taking everyone into consideration. You know, our trans population, our BIPOC trans population, our women, it's not to get too crazy like this, but the systemic racism that even exists within our community, and how much sometimes we allow outside things to kind of infect. And it's just, I think we have the ability to be better and be better for ourselves so that other people can see it and hopefully take a cue from it.
Yes. Yes. And it's so funny because I feel like, Ken, every time I start to talk to anyone who's artistic and creative, when we start to talk in depth, it's the same goal. You know, like this is what I want to do as well. Like I want to be a part of that community building. And this is, I even kind of said that on my TikTok. Like I don't want people to follow me. I don't want followers. I don't want fans. I want to build community. I want community members who interact with each other. So when we go to shows together, it's a performance that you all participated in creating, right? It's curated by you. I just get to be the person to organize sometimes, you know?
Exactly. I think that, and I've said this to other people, that people are like, well, so Q review, and I mean, it's first of all, it has the word review in it, so a lot of people think that it's a music magazine, and I'm like, I don't want to be that. That's not what this is. I like alliteration, obviously, and I liked rhyming. So Q review and Q and two, and it all kind of worked because it was the mindset and the path that I was on at the time of how to create something that was engaging. But I in no way, shape, or form want to be the star of something. I want to be part of creating a world where people feel safe, they feel heard, they feel seen, that they, that their music is reaching youth. I'm a youth advocate. That's another big thing for me is, I look at whether it's in the United States with GSLNs, in Canada, in the United States with PFLAGs. If I look at youth organizations, I look at, it's great, what GLAD and Trevor Project and stuff like that do. But I want to get artists and their music in front of youth. And I want youth to become the fan of, queer youth loving queer music doesn't happen. There's a lot of queer adults who love queer music, but even then it's limited. But I just think that, queer youth, if we can build that fan base as they come out and they realize who they are, and they can have heroes singing music that they connect with and hearing stories that these artists are telling through their music, it can be life-changing for youth, and it can be life-changing for anybody who's in isolation. So I think that there's a responsibility there, and there's a lot of work to be done. So
I could not agree more. And I think this is something that I am trying to touch on myself in this GayCom, this future EP that's coming out. And also, I'm a teacher and I work with youth as well, lots of queer youth, and I try to use my presence. My nails are often painted. I don't hide my queerness at any point in my time or path or career, and I want to make sure that kind of presence is so strong and visible for young people, because when I was young, gay marriage wasn't even a thing. I did not grow up watching gay couples have healthy relationships, getting married, even getting divorced, having long-term anything. I did not have any of those things as a youth, and if I wanted them, I had to search for them. Yeah. And sometimes in searching for them, you don't find the healthy ones. No. You find the ones that are just in the public eye. And this is, what I want to do, and why I want a platform, and why I want to be an artist, is to say, hey, look, I'm one depiction of a queer man in the world. It might resonate with you, it might not. And you might be a straight woman, you know, and
Yeah.
my experience as a queer man might really resonate with you. And that is interesting. And that is community building to me, to find those likenesses and those differences and just celebrate them and have them together. And for me, and why I'm so blessed to have music in my life, is I found that this is my vehicle. This I know for myself is the way that I can tell a story, bring it to people, and have them really feel it earnestly. And so, and it seems for you as well, you know, in this curation of finding artists and bringing them together and doing that, this is a vehicle of community building and just witnessing and figuring out what this crazy human experience really is, you know, and that to me is so interesting.
There will be folks, there will always be those who their eye is on the prize, and their understanding of what success is reaching a certain level, and it's going to be numbers based, it's going to be dollars based, it's going to be who knows them, how many followers. The fact that, I mean, Katie Lang liked one of my tweets, and I went off my nut the other day because of it, because I'm like, that is someone who, if they've recognized, and it's not necessarily that all of a sudden I'm doing something different, I'm doing such amazing things. It's about the fact that you can tell you're starting to kind of break through some places. And if that person can hear you, hopefully they see what else is coming along. Because if through me, they can find a Jay, if Katie Lang happens to come to contact with your music, Katie, if you're out there watching, please. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, that it's bigger than me. It's not about competition. It's about how are all these little moments conduits to something bigger for everyone. And I think that, you know, you have to, I think you get to a certain maybe point in age too, and through life experience, where you start to realize, you know, some of those things that are really important and some of the stuff that's not. There's always going to be artists who will have their eye on the prize. The music industry, entertainment in general, is a seductive mistress that is unrelenting. And there's so many pretty packages with a whole lot of ugly behind, because that's entertainment. We know this. This is not a, you know, it's not a guessing game.
Right.
But if you can get yourself into a place and build yourself a career based on real movement, momentum, and community, you're probably going to, by the time you get to that point that you're going to be okay with that stuff, you're going to be that much more richer in spirit, in mind, in body, and probably in your career.
Yes. And it's funny because, you know, I would be lying if I said I never think about success and money and numbers, right? Like, we must as humans, and the goal as an artist, I think any independent artist would agree, is to have a self-sustaining life within the art you create, you know. And this is an unfortunate reality for the numbers, and why I wanted to come back to this is because right now, in this time of year, is when everybody's getting their Spotify unwrapped or released or everything, and all of my social medias are full of artists that I follow. Many I know personally, many I just know through social media, some I just fan over. And everyone puts out their numbers. And, you know, and I always get depressed. And I can't help it because I see these M's and these K's next to all these numbers. And I'm like, man, like, what must it feel like? You know, like, I'm not there yet. What must it feel like? And then I always remind myself, like, oh, but I'm not in competition with any of these people. And this is what I've said, and I'll say it a million times because I am speaking to myself here as well. I'm only in competition with me. I'm trying to be a better Jay Long. At every point in time, that is my goal. How do I be the best Jay Long that exists? Because we already have Troye Sivan. We already have Lizzo. We already have, you know, all these artists. I'm not trying to be a better Troye Sivan or a better Lizzo. I could never be those people because I'm not that person.
Exactly. You know,
So,
and I think that you're right. You have to give yourself the room and the space and the freedom to know that these things are going to get inside you and make you feel that negativity will be there, because it's in our nature to compare ourselves, and the world tells us to do it. But you also have to, you know, then give yourself that room to be okay with it. It's like, yeah, it's going to fire me up, and I'm going to be like, what must that be like? And then you reel it back in and you say, I'm not in competition with them. And if you have, you know, and I've seen this recently where somebody has made the leap from one paranoid adjustment to another, where it's kind of like, oh, if it must be so great to have, 20 some thousand streams. And then they got there. And now they're comparing themselves with people who have 100,000. You get to 1 million, but you don't have 5 million. It'll never end because the numbers can always climb. But you have to find the nuggets in there, and they're not in the streams. Streams are a necessity, but the nuggets of gold are not in there. They're in the, what were the comments that were made? Did how many people, responded to things? Did you get good messages? Do you feel good about what you put out? Do you feel that, you've put out a body of work you can stand behind, and in 20 years time, you're going to still look back and kind of go, man, that was a great time. I was really cooking with there. 700 people found it, but that's 700 people who found it for a reason and enjoyed it and could have been really transformative for them.
And I'm reminded of a story that my mother told me, because as a teacher, I sometimes deal with these same things where it's like, I don't get gifts from all the kids that I teach. I don't get all this, I don't get praise and recognition. Most of the time I feel like I'm the enemy, you just work in education. It's a hard place to be for kids because they don't have an option at this point in young people. They're like, I don't want to be here. And sometimes you're like, hey, me neither, but we're here. So anyway, the story I'm reminded of is my sister's teacher in elementary school, in junior high school. His name was Mr. Tennyson, and he unfortunately passed away. And he was very beloved by many of the students. He was just one of those teachers that you get once in a lifetime who invested in every kid that he came across. And I'll never forget this story, and it makes me a little bit emotional, but he was very ill, and he was talking to his brother, and he was saying, what have I done? What have I really done? Like, what do I have to show? And his brother, I believe it was his brother, has a bag full of letters from all of the kids that he's taught over the years, and just dumps them out and said, look at this. What do you mean? What do you look at all of these hundreds of people that you personally interacted with, and maybe you didn't change every single one of their lives, but they all remember you. And I think that both of you are better for the for the engagement for this. And I often think about that moment when I get down on myself of like, what am I doing here? Why do I care? I have 3 people listening. What does it matter? And it's like, well, that one person who comes up to you and says, this song that you made changed my day. Mm-hmm. And that's been really hard for me to do lately. So thank you. And those moments have happened in my life. And it's that where I will get weepy and I'll say, oh, I better write another song then, and that's what it's for, the community. That's
the gold. That is the gold right there. And I think that if we can keep ourselves on task, I'm not sure, on point of realizing that that's the gold, I think that they become brighter and brighter, and they become shinier to us, and we start to recognize them a lot earlier. And I think that that's really important. Those are the important things that as you learn, you pass along to others, so that hopefully they can find the gold earlier.
Yes.
Now, if we can find you some music gold, you've already got the music gold because you wrote it. But it's like, going back to the streams and stuff like that, it's kind of like, it's an arduous task. But I mean, I think as the community builds, I think that what's really good is the embracing that's kind of happening. And I'm seeing a lot of artists kind of coming up together in their numbers, and they're feeding off one another, which I think is all you can ask for. And I think it's great. It's a great way to start building a community.
Yeah. And this is the advice no one asked for, but one thing that changed my experience as a queer artist in moving to LA and discovering really what I'm trying to do as an artist was starting to reach out to other artists who I both looked up to, and other artists who I'm like, hey, you kind of do what I do. What's up? Should we collaborate or not? I don't know. Maybe you want to, and just reaching out and doing this. I've actually found a lot of very good friends now, and people that will hit me up and be like, hey, I'm doing this gig. Do you want to maybe be a part of it? Or vice versa. And having this creative momentum that you witness is so life-changing as a creative. When you can wake up and you see your friends post about, I got a song coming out, and you listen to it and they've sent it to you 4 months ago when it was like just a note in their phone. You're like, oh my God, you did it. Like, good job, you did it. Thanks for the motivation. Let me go do it now, you know? And I just think that that's an incredible, incredible thing.
It is. It's incredible to watch, because you're, one of the things that I said right from the beginning of this was always about, I wasn't seeing artists connecting and collaborating the way that I really thought that they should. And now I see so much of it. So I hope I inspired some, and I hope that, you know, those are little takeaways where you can kind of look at it and you can kind of say, those two people who probably never would have connected before are now connecting. And however that came about, it's a positive thing, and it's a smart thing, and it's a community building situation. And I think that can only become stronger and become more infectious, which I think is the goal. And
I tell you, I've always, one of my own personal secrets that, again, no one asked for, but I think of it as like a fun game. Like in my very first big music video I filmed, like, there are a lot of friends of mine who are artists on their own. If you clicked on their name and you go follow them, they're astounding drag queens. You know, Beijing, my friend who is here right now, who does creative direction for me all the time and like helps me with my outfits. It's just an incredible artist in his own regard. And then, you know, I have a friend, Estides, Jason Dupuy is his name, also a drag queen, who's in my first music video, who has like an astonishing career that he's building for himself. And the person who is the handsome devil in my video is another artist who is also performing and doing all these things. So I like to think that what you're saying becomes true eventually, is like, as all the people you work with start to rise on their own, you go back one day and the real stans who are following say, well, did you hear that this artist was in that music video at the beginning of their careers together, and things like this? Like that to me just seems so cool and so exciting.
It is. It's you know, it's that whole concept of, you know, the ripple effect. You know, it starts with a core group, a core person, and it just keeps rippling out further and further and further. And sometimes the waves are big and sometimes they're smaller, but they're moving. And I think that that's the magic of it.
Amen.
Yeah. So, okay. New song, here we are 40 minutes later. New song is Change Your Vibe. It is coming out on December 12th. There is a lot of irons and a lot of fires for 2021. If people are watching, they need to go pre-save and then go stream. And you know what? Streaming is nice, but if you can, a little purchase of a song goes a long way, my friends. A little purchase of a song. And you know what? There's always merch involved. Be sure that you're keeping an eye out on that. Who wouldn't want a fantastic merch piece for Christmas? That's all I'm saying. I love everything that you do. And I think that, like I said, there's such an energy that comes along with what it is that you're putting out there, that it becomes infectious, and it only makes people, I think, want to share it more. So I'm excited to see everything else that comes along with it.
Amen. Ken, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure, man. And you're doing so much work bringing people together and putting spotlight on queer artists. It's so exciting to be a part of it, to witness. And thank you, number one, for the ego boost and making me feel so fabulous and wonderful. That's, you know, it doesn't go unnoticed. It's hard work.
Listen, I'm out there every day, as Spotify told me in my wrap up, that apparently I listened to 1,703 artists so far this year, which and that's the ones that are on Spotify, because there's a lot that I listen to outside of that. But there's no shortage of artists and magic and music and so much creativity that's out there. And the more that we can share, the louder it becomes and the more visible it becomes. And hopefully the more representative it becomes, because that's a big thing too. But yeah, it's weird, because I look at pockets of artists, and for me, it's kind of like somebody will come along and there'll be a brand new artist. And this happened to me today, happened to me 3 times today, where I'm kind of like, oh, I feel like they would fit so well in what's being created over in this pocket. I kind of make sure that I, send a shout out over this way so that they kind of connect or whatnot. Because as you start to see that happen, that landscape be created, it's exciting to know that you can potentially offer, like, push it like somebody towards a place that they will thrive with people that are very like-minded and creating and their creative energy, when you can kind of see that. So it's really interesting to watch. I would love to be able to at some point in time create like a documentary about how all this kind of creates. Maybe I will, who knows?
Amazing. Well, I will look forward to that, maybe 2021.
I will look forward to everything that you have. So thank you so much for joining me today and jumping on here. And I can't wait to see all the response and all the love that's going to be given to Catch a Vibe when it hits the streets.
Amen. And thank you so much for having me, Ken. Thank you. Change a Vibe, 1212. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. We will talk to you soon. I now return you to your life from which I stole you.
Bye.